Ladies and gentlemen, Angela the Boss Hawse.
Wow. This is awesome. I had no idea. And what an amazing community event. And I'm just honored to be here amongst you, this good company, and the effort that goes forth in community building and hugging. I love that you're huggers. And that Alpenglow and Brendan have put this amazing gathering place for you all to get together and celebrate our achievements, our joys, our triumphs, our sadness, and all the things. And it's something that's super unique, and you guys are really lucky to have this, and I'm absolutely honored. So let's give it up to Brendan and Alpenglow Sports and all the sponsors. And nice to see the snow. I can't take credit for that. I'd like to, but I won't. I also just, it's a perfect fit with the Headwaters Institute for them to be the recipient of tonight's show. So let's give it up for them. I'm a lifelong learner. I learned through my instructors who inspired curiosity, and it's just the best thing we can be doing is getting our kids out in nature. So bravo to your work. It's super, super, super cool. Yeah, and thanks for anyone tuning in live. We're psyched you're here, and those watching from home in the coziness of your own living rooms. Thanks for joining us. And congratulations all the prize winners. Wow. Give it up to the sponsors. Yes. And I have to thank Black Diamond for bringing me here. I'm on the athlete team and super honored to have this opportunity. Small but mighty. This is, you might look at this as a woefully underperforming type of machine to spend 11 days on traversing across Mongolia on a race, and it actually proved to be pretty good for me. As you can see, I'm small also, so it was a pretty good machine for that. But you know, I'm going to get back to that a little later in my show. It's a pretty fun little story. But this little mechanical marvel is a monkey bike that it's remarkable. And I want you all to think about your first impressions when you saw this picture. And because my show's a little bit about first impressions and how women as mountain guides or women in the outdoor space have had a few more challenges, have had a few more mountains to climb than most white men have. And so I want to give a shout out to all that extra effort that we've put in to have our space in the world. Yes. And if I asked you which was the mountain guide here, most people would point to the guy on the left, obviously. He's the guy who looks like a mountain guide. But no, it's me on the right, and I'm small but mighty. And it's, you know, most of my clients are taller than me, remarkably. And it's amazing that I can actually see, you can see me over the podium. I'll try to get out here. But, you know, mountain guiding all over the world, like Brendan says, it's a male-dominated profession. 7,000 mountain guides, fully certified, with only 200, maybe 250 being women. That's like 4% are women around the world. And here at the AMGA, we have a much higher ratio. We have like 13%, which is awesome, but there's still a lot of work to do out there. And so a lot of you in this room are going to be the ones to pick up a lot of this work as those of us who kind of started to pave the way and pioneer this kind of start to do things for ourselves. I look forward to those days. But I'm still totally psyched to be in it. This is Raymond from Luxembourg, who I had the pleasure of guiding on Karsten's Pyramid, one of the 7 summits. Despite Raymond towering over me and all the locals, he never questioned my ability as a guide. You know, he hired a guide. He knew the job was to get it done and bring him back alive and have a good time doing it. And that's, I'm grateful to say that's been mostly my experience throughout my career. I'm very fortunate that I haven't faced much discrimination or harassment, even sexual harassment, but I can't say the same is true for a lot of women in my profession. And somehow I've become a kind of a champion for this cause. And now, in a world where size matters, I did draw the short end of the straw on height. But like this fellow from West Papua on my right, I've made up for my small stature in my own unique ways that have enabled me to have a successful career in a male-dominated profession for over 3 decades. I put one of these on Instagram and they immediately took it off. It was pretty classic. I love this slide for many reasons, but I chose to use it here as an example of how easy it is to jump to our own conclusions and size each other up. Like this kid that's behind his shoulder, you can see him looking at me. It's like, who is this white, tall woman, like, that's all happy to see my uncle? And it's just, you know, something that AMGA mountain guides have worked on, focused for years, especially the instructor team, in understanding our bias and how we show up and how our cultural background or just our upbringing or who our friends are, how that influences how we see other people. And that's a big part of the challenges of being a woman in a male-dominated world and a career. But it's never stopped me from pursuing my dream. And my success came from a lot of personal experience in the mountains and a lot of confidence and a hefty dose of passion to get there and keep going. And this is Raymond on Karsten's Pyramid. We had an amazing experience to be up here on our own this day. And like most of the thousands of other amazing clients I've had the privilege of guiding on all kinds of different adventures around the world, Raymond here, he trusted my abilities and he never questioned me. He never went to another guide and said, hey, do you think she's up for the job? Because it wasn't about my gender. It was about my ability to be there. And I was there and he just went right along on it. And like I said, we had such a super cool experience, just the two of us. I'd never been on this mountain. But although there's always a feeling of awe and being very small on big mountains, it doesn't matter what size you are. You always feel small in the big mountains. I've always loved on-site guiding, which is going to places that I've never been and just figuring it out and problem solving on my feet and and finding the way. And it's for me, that's been a real passion in my work, and it's stuff that I've done a lot of, and I've had a lot of great opportunities to do that. And even for routes that I've guided like hundreds of times, mountains I've climbed 100 times, it's never the same. No 2 days are ever the same. The clients are never the same. The weather's never the same. I'm never the same. But it's all about like being in the moment, and that's the beauty of, I think, climbing and skiing is just, it really, you're not thinking about what you're going to have for lunch. You have to be there. You have to be present. And certainly the more technical it is, the more present that we have to be. So I consider myself extremely fortunate to be I've never had one of these little things on my ear before. I consider myself extremely fortunate to be in the business of providing adventurous people with trips of a lifetime. It's a true gift. Although I'm also a fortunate sponsored athlete, I'm a mountain guide, and I don't have pro photographers following me around like most pro athletes do. So I just give a little bit of a disclaimer that some of these slides might be a little grainy because they're old and they might not be super pro, but they help tell my story. And most of the pictures I took, because I'm usually the one taking the pictures. If there's a picture of me, it's oftentimes a client took it. And so it's an amazing career. Some of my favorite clients have become dear friends, and They refer to me as their pocket guide because they can just shove me in their pocket and take me anywhere since I'm small. It's true, I'm packable. But in all seriousness, it's an immense pleasure taking people on places around this remarkable planet, sharing a rope, sharing turns, and an adventure of a lifetime together. And almost every trip I do is an adventure of a lifetime, and especially taking folks to places they've never been before. It's absolutely phenomenal. Ow! Karen Stanley, I don't know if you all know Karen, but I think for many of the women I've had the opportunity to climb or ski with, that they probably find having a female guide makes them feel more confident and gives them a boost. And I know it for certain can lighten things up. And we seem to always, in a group of all women, have a ton of fun. And it's not that we don't in mixed company, but there's some kind of chemistry that happens when you get a group of women together. Guides really have a unique ability to open up places in the world that others would never be able to go. And it's you know, our main job is to manage risk, lead the way, and come back again. Of course, there are always round trips. A big part of the work is teaching folks skills that they need to have the capacity to work together as a team. And that creates lifelong friendships and trust and all kinds of benefits that they don't even know when they're signing up for a trip. It's some of the hidden gems of the work build these lifelong partnerships that are truly unique. And for sure, in every way, the emotion and the impact of sharing a summit and experience like these are as rewarding for me as they are for my clients. It's truly a gift and something I never take for granted. Experiencing the awesomeness and beauty of this wild places on our super special planet with others it's incredibly rewarding. I feel so fortunate that I have this career that I just love. Gender, race, stature, wealth, or not, that's never comes up when you're out in nature on these trips. We're all just human beings having a shared experience together, and it's a beautiful thing to disconnect from, you know, news, phones. I love places like this, way, way remote up in the Arctic where there's no cell service, even if you wanted it. Taking people to the edge of their limits, just pushing them just far enough that they're a little uncomfortable, but I know that they can do it, it just always like empowers people to go the next step, the next year, or it just gives them more confidence, and it just creates something when you step out of your comfort zone that is, it makes you just feel good, and it's something I hope we all get out there and do. I'm sure tomorrow there'll be a lot of that going on in the nice snow. But there's also this incredible sense of feeling small, like I said, and just being in awe of these places that are so vast, so wild, so remote that, you know, really, it creates ambassadors for the earth, and it creates people that come back and they're advocates for these places that they fall in love with, and I know that it truly makes a difference. And I've shared a lifetime of unforgettable days, memories, joy with folks that have trusted me with their care, and it's been such a joyful journey and gift that just keeps giving. And although I'm small, I am mighty. Despite frequent high winds, stormy weather, you know, all the adversity that you get out in the wild on top of a mountain, it's just inevitable that you face challenges. So the challenges that I've faced in my career as a woman are for me a lot the same. It's just like problem solving. You figure it out, you get over it, you have heart-to-heart conversations, and you change, and you manifest the way you want it to be through the interactions that you have with the people that you're sharing the space with, and that works in my experience. And though somehow I didn't set out to become an ambassador for women in mountain guiding, it's been a great honor to be one of the early pioneers and to have so many women that are my mentees and women that I keep in touch with and follow their path throughout their careers. Because, you know, even though I've stuck with it through and through, the real and perceived barriers, I mean, this little penguin thinks this is probably a real barrier here. There's a lot of allies out there who have supported me along the way, and I'm stoked to be in the position to help other women do the same. They're crack me up, these penguins. So early in my career, even before I wanted to become a mountain guide, for some reason I wanted to be a mountain guide trainer. I knew that was going to be my path, and I kind of like set out to do it. And I became, in 2005, I became the only woman on the AMGA instructor team, and that was the same for years. And it was a great honor to be on the AMGA instructor team, and there were women getting into the program, and although there was fewer women back then, it definitely began to get more and more common to have 1 or 2 women on a program, but still it wasn't that comfortable for all women. I mean, some women are really comfortable in the space and doing stuff like this with all guys, and that was my story, but a lot of women aren't. So when you see someone that looks like you, it really helps and encourages you to think that you could do it, or there's, you know, you'd be welcome to do so. But being an instructor a team member comes with its own challenges. It's kind of like backseat guiding high-end clients that are like doing things that are kind of like really edgy sometimes. So it's definitely a different type of work than normal guiding, because I usually like to be up front or, you know, in control. And you do have a large degree of control, but it's still, it's a different way of doing it. But it's been, you know, it's been a real passion is giving back to my profession through training young professionals that are going through the career. And I'm really happy that I've had the opportunity to do so. This is an all-women's rock climbing course, and thanks to support from the industry and brands like Black Diamond, there's more scholarships available for women, and we actually even have all-women's rock climbing courses, all-women's ski guide courses, all-women's alpine guide courses, to get women started in spaces that feel a little bit more supportive. And it's really changing the nature and the landscape of guiding, and we have a lot of fun doing it. But, you know, obviously they're still held to the same high standard. And I definitely acknowledge my privilege as a white woman born in America to be even able to pursue this path. Although it's clear we still have a long way to go, but I've had the opportunity to work with young women in Nepal, training them to be rock climbing and trekking guides, and the cultural barriers that they have to surmount in relation to the ones I do are night and day. And there's a lot of work in the world, obviously, that needs to be done out there, but it's hopeful and it's encouraging to have the opportunity to just get out there and train these women on unique programs. It's this type of like giving back. I mean, this stuff doesn't pay very well, but it pays in spades in the heart, and it really feels like you're having a positive impact on these gals who are going to have a positive impact for their gals, and not stand. They're going to stand up for things that just aren't okay. And so it's opened the doors, and it's broadened my perception of the world, all these experiences that I've had. And just about part of every expedition, we have Kimberly Shambari here today, who was on this expedition to Everest. This was a super unique expedition I was on in '98. I was the deputy leader, and I'm going to get a little bit more into this, but the giving back component of it was I raised $10,000 to pay our Sherpa team to bring down oxygen bottles from the South Col, which is at 26,000 feet. And it was a great way to get them down, because no one's going to bring them down unless they're getting paid for it. And we also cleaned up over 1,000 kilograms of camp from Camp 2, which was a really cool endeavor. And there is our local Kimberly Shambari, young Kimberly. In 2000, I took a group of Prescott College students to climb Aconcagua, And we cleaned up and carried 5,000 kilos of garbage from high camps on the off the mountain, mostly on our backs. And so that was another do-good trip. And over the course of 2 different all-women's expeditions to AMGA Lifetime and Mount Everest, my teams have raised over $33,000 to help the Z Foundation build a safe house and schools for young girls in the Himalaya, which is super cool. And locally, where I live, thank you. Thank you. And locally, where I live, are Chicks with Picks. I don't know if you've heard of Chicks with Picks. We'll go into that a little bit. I think I have some Chicks with Picks in the audience here. We've raised, over the course of 20 years of running women's programs and doing events, smaller events like this in Ouray, Colorado, over $250,000 for local women's shelters, which is really, really cool. So it's what's cool is to be able to tag all this together, like it's not separate. It doesn't create a whole lot of effort to raise some money when you go do something super cool and all your friends want to pitch in, and it's easy. It's really easy to do, and I hope we see more and more of that. Okay, to give a little context to my off the beaten path, I definitely was a small but mighty kid here on the left. But I had a lot of gumption and a lot of independence. And my younger sister, she went along with most everything because she was the younger sister, but I don't think she was necessarily always happy about it. And I have no idea here why I'm wearing a skirt, but it must have been either I just got back from Sunday school or I was being punished. Because I was and am a tomboy through and through to the core. My best friend was a boy, which might have been a factor, but I'm pretty sure that that's who I am. My grandfather was a cattle farmer, and we spent as much time as possible on the farm with him, especially in the summers. And I credit him for my motivation and drive to pursue an unconventional life. From very early on, it really rubbed me wrong when I could do some things on the farm, but other things were for boys. And although he might have been trying to protect me, I think I was destined to break a lot of glass ceilings because of those barriers. Yeah. And this is a Girl Scout troop in Elkins, West Virginia that I was kicked out of in less than a year. Let's see, that's me there, looking ornery, because I wanted to use knives and climb trees and wasn't content to macrame. I really think the leaders just didn't want to deal with me. And this is classic. So my parents didn't ski, but the local YMCA offered a bus to snowshoe in West Virginia. So my sister and I figured it out. You know, we had the jeans, had the frost line, one, homemade vest, and the classic rear entry boots. I'm sure we had bandanas in our back pockets. And so we had zero instruction, and we're total hacks, but we definitely felt cool out there. And my mom always said she was pretty sure she brought the wrong kid home from the hospital. And I used to bring snakes home all the time when I was a little kid, but when I brought a boa constrictor home, the one I brought home was a little smaller than this. I'm sure it confirmed her suspicions. But after an unsettled year of going to college back in West Virginia, where I grew up, I found Prescott College in 1983. Yeah, Prescott. I love that. Yeah, Prescott. We're everywhere. It's amazing. I found it in the back of a Sierra Club magazine. After taking a geology class, I'm like, I'm going there. Those rocks look really cool. I got on a Greyhound bus. I'd never been west of the Mississippi, and waved my parents goodbye. 2 days on the bus across the country, and it was the best decision I ever made in my life. And it's just, yeah, it was amazing. Just got to follow your gut sometimes. And the cool thing, there were always as many women on the trips as there were guys. Gender was never a thing at Prescott College. The college's theme was education is a journey, not a destination. And that's also a theme that's carried throughout my life. Our classrooms were all outside in the middle of the Southwest or Mexico. And my instructors were definitely some of the coolest people I'd ever met. And they had so much fun teaching us how to figure out the outdoors and everything. And so I knew that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be just like them. And Prescott was also amazing because it just you learned hands-on, just like the Headwaters Institute. You know, we're just out there figuring it out, being super curious, problem solving, making decisions, sometimes bad, sometimes good. But one thing we never really figured out was how to ski. And we were famous for being really bad skiers on telemark skis, 3-pin binding, 75 underfoot, way too long. And we were famous for just being bad skiers. I mean, look at those tracks. It's unbelievable that I can ski now. It's but the places that we got to, we would go out for 3 weeks at a time with these huge backpacks and camp out and build Quonset huts and stuff. And yeah, it was crazy. The places we got to blew our minds that we could even travel in that environment in the winter. Depending on the faculty member, clothing was optional. And, this was such an awesome opportunity to celebrate our bodies, and especially at an age when women we're all starting to feel a little insecure about super body conscious. And, our bodies are beautiful, and it was really beautiful. It was a wonderful thing that our instructors just were liberal like that. They weren't all, I will say. We explored most of the tributaries of the Colorado River and through Utah and a bunch of islands down in the Sea of Cortez via river kayak, a woefully unsuited vehicle for that. We'd shove 10 or 8 or 10 days worth of food in the bowels of our boat and some water and explore these places. This is on the Escalante tributary. I think we boated down that for 10 days. A super, super magical way to learn about nature and learn about landscapes while navigating, problem solving through doing technical things out there. I fell in love with whitewater kayaking through the 80s. And after a lot of personal mileage, I started teaching it at Prescott College even a year before I graduated, which probably was the most terrifying thing I've ever done. And after several exciting years and way too many close calls of students getting stuck on things and pulling them off, I realized how little control yelling at them to paddle harder actually, how ineffective that actually was. So I abandoned whitewater kayaking altogether, and I decided I had much more control with them on a rope. So that's when I knew I wanted to be more of a technical guide. And the pace and the challenge of pushing my limits on rock climbs, it really suited me. And I learned to lead with hexes and stoppers, and cams were just kind of coming available for us. They were maybe out there for a little while before then, but in Prescott was just chocked full of amazing rock climbing everywhere. And so shortly after I graduated, I started teaching rock climbing at the college in the spring and fall and working for Outward Bound in the summers, which was also great. Outward Bound, people? Yeah. Woo! And so this was really the start, late 80s, early 90s of what I would call my dedicated apprenticeship, my alpine apprenticeship, for the next decade that proved a really solid foundation for becoming a technical mountain guide. And these years and the places I went and explored really lit a passion that has been consistent for the last 3.5 decades. I climbed remote peaks up in Alaska, did a bunch of north faces in the Canadian Rockies. This fella here was my mentor and did lots of alpine rock climbing with him, Mike Goff. And having a mentor really enabled me to learn from his experience while pushing my own under his careful watch. And that was a big part of me being able to do more and more. And it was amazing partnership until I started asking him to do the harder leads, and he definitely, that bruised his ego, and yeah, I think it made him really scared because he didn't want me to get hurt. So it started to get a little more stressful than fun, but we stuck with it for a while, and we went to England, to the UK, and climbed a bunch of routes in big full shank boots so we get better climbing in the mountains. This is like a classic day climbing in the rain. I totally remember like reaching up for a hold. There'd be moss. It'd be like a sponge in the water, like go all the way down into my boots. And you can see how happy I am about it. Type 3 fun for sure. And Mike and I did a traverse from Sweden to Norway. It was a 28-day traverse on our telemark skis, pulling sleds. And ran out of food on day 25, and it was an adventure of a lifetime. Character building for sure. And then we went on, we were invited to go to the Garhwal Himalaya in India. Some friends of his had put together an international expedition to climb this peak, which is Shivling, and there's a small little ridge that goes up to the notch there. It's the west ridge of Shivling. Beautiful granite, just a stunning peak. But unfortunately, the weather was absolutely awful, which is, you can see in the picture of the blue sky. Yeah. The weather was terrible, and Mike and I were able to climb this peak, which is 22,500 feet. That was the highest I'd ever been. Kedarnath Dome in that area before we had to abandon the whole base camp and stuff. So that was really my first time in the Himalaya, and I was absolutely hooked. But I didn't know anyone that was climbing in the Himalaya, so I didn't really know how to go back, and Mike wasn't interested anymore. And so I found a partner this is Fitzroy down in Patagonia. I found a partner in Jim Galetto, local legend Jim Galetto, winner. Go Jim. Love Jim. And Jim and I climbed a couple of really fun, exciting routes on the flanks of Fitzroy, and we were pretty humbled to get in a few summits as first-timers to Patagonia. It was absolutely exceptional rock climbing. And we were both still kind of cutting our teeth on alpine rock, and so there was no drama. Jim's a great partner. And we just made a great team, and we had a ton of fun together, which is always such an important part of the climbing. It's really who you go to the mountains with more than what you climb. And we climbed one of these snowy routes up that peak, Guillemets. I don't even remember which way we got up, but it was amazing, and we felt mighty but small on the summit. And little did we know that life was about to get very real after we got down from the summit. This is a crew of climbers at base camp sometime early in the trip. And this fellow here in the middle cooking pancakes or something, and his partner over here, were on Fitzroy the day that we climbed Guillemets, and we decided, because we knew they were up high, to stay up high instead of going all the way down. So we bivvied in these ice caves, and on their descent from Fitzroy, one of the anchors failed, and the American, of course the big guy, fell. See my pointer in the notch there. He fell 1,000 feet down 80-degree terrain on the col there, and survived. Is absolutely miraculous. His partner managed to down climb, run to us in the dark, found us. We went back up and did it like overnight. We did like an open bivvy and thought the guy was going to die right in front of us. He was unconscious and labored breathing and everything. But we managed to lower him down, and a couple international climbers came up, and over a 2-day period with an international team speaking 3 languages, we did descents, technical lowers, and got the guy down, and he actually survived, which is absolutely remarkable. If we wouldn't have stayed up there, he wouldn't have had a chance. And Jim, of course, was an amazing partner for that. This is one of your really nice rocks in California. Yes. I think the next time I climbed with Jim, we tried to climb the triple direct. And again, we're thwarted by this bad weather that you can see in the sky. No, we actually, a big snowstorm came in, and it was a good thing that we descended. We were just one day, one night up, and pretty humbled, descended with our tails between our legs. But I kept trying to climb El Cap, and finally got up the dihedral wall with a friend who was a climbing ranger at the time in Denali, Joe Reichert, and he was a wall wizard, and we had the whole wall to ourselves one November, I think it was in 96 or something like that, and I learned a ton of skills. It was amazing because he just was amazing how he could aid climb up this thing. And I was really early on in my aid climbing. And these are the things that, to be a well-rounded climber and go to the bigger range, you have to be able to climb off with cracks and go to stuff like this. And so it was great to get up El Cap. But my mind was always set on the greater ranges in Asia, and I looked for a way to get back, and one of my friends turned me on to a UIA expedition that accepted applications from all over the world, and I was one of 3 Americans to get to go back, or to go to Pakistan. And I love this quote from Vince Anderson, who's on the AMGA instructor team for guides that are getting into training. Sell your van and go to Pakistan. It's the best thing you can do. If you're going to be a guide, go spend some time in the mountains. Get out of your van. And I was just captivated by these places. It just was a phenomenal, it was eye candy to see how these folks live along the Indus River in a virtual vertical desert there in the Karakoram. And they're happy people, they have very little. And this was somewhat similar to going up the Ganges River in India, but it was the Indus River in Pakistan. And this is the Karakoram Highway, which is an audacious, crazy road that is cut through unbelievable sides of the mountain and right above. You spend 2 days traversing this to get from Islamabad to Skardu. And this is typical road construction, definitely not OSHA approved. I love this guy's barefoot. Really? And they're wearing slippers. It's just unbelievable, the things that you see. So we hired a bus that in itself was more an adventure than we bargained for. And, this is the highway. It's over 2 trips to Pakistan, I went up and down this highway 3 times, which is crazy. I think a motorcycle would probably be the better way to go. And it was flooding, and, people treat it like no big deal. I mean, these bus drivers and road workers, it's just every day in the life, they never seem stressed, and they're always helping each other. It was incredible. Yeah, push some rocks off the road. A lot of crazy stuff that you see where people don't have many resources. And we couldn't decide whether it's better to be on top of the bus, hang off the side of the bus, be inside the bus. So we just kind of moved around, and it was a crapshoot. And the crazy thing was you'd ask the bus driver how much farther, and he'd always start the sentence with inshallah, which means Allah willing. Allah willing will arrive, in 3 or 4 days, which really wasn't very confidence inspiring. But again, these people along the way are just absolutely phenomenal. They're so proud, they're so poor, curious, and I think there weren't a lot of expeditions going there back in the early 90s, so it was really cool. Very few, they don't speak English, but you can always have a conversation with mountain people, when you take the time. There's a lot, it's easy. And these are some of our porters, which got us into base camp and back out. And I still keep in touch with some of them. It's super cool. Gotta love Facebook for that. And we went into the Hawse Valley, and Masher Broom is at the head of the Hawse Valley. I believe Adrian Ballinger had a show where he was trying to ski this. I don't know if it was that face, but it's an impressive, awe-inspiring mountain from every aspect. And our trek took us up into the Chiracusa Valley, where you're looking at Linksar and K6 and some of these bigger peaks up there. And then, so this was the objective. For some reason, I wanted to climb this ridge going up here, and our high point, and this is probably like bigger than El Cap. It's pretty big, and it's at 6,000 meters. And our high point was right around here before a storm came in. And so our advanced base camp was here. We'd have to walk across this glacier to get to the advanced, and then we fixed ropes up this face onto the ridge. And once we got onto the ridge, it was pretty cool, smooth sailing. But we had a lot of gear, and it's a process. I think we were there for 65 days, and we'd spend 2 or 3 days at this low advanced base camp and go back to base camp and climb just beautiful rock, no one had ever even touched. It was really, really a magical experience. And to see how small you feel, I think right here is the person below me. Super, super hard to get a sense of scale there. It's just absolutely awe-inspiring and enormous. And yeah, a lot of up and down. We were pretty worked. And by the time the storm came in, we were pretty fried, and it was clear we weren't going to make it to the summit. So we managed to retrieve all of our ropes, which was miraculous, and not leave any behind, which was great. And that was up in smoke, that expedition. So my next opportunity was to climb Mount Everest from the Nepal side in '98 with Tom Whitaker, who's an amputee, and another faculty member from Prescott College, Gareth Richards. And Tom had lost his leg in a head-on collision with a junk driver, and he had been a really competent mountaineer ahead of that, and always had the dream of climbing Everest and wasn't going to let this get in his way. So he knew that I had Himalayan experience. We were all faculty at Prescott College. Another aspect of this expedition was Tom had worked at another college that had a program for folks with disabilities, and they organized a trek to base camp. 2 folks with cerebral palsy, a couple of spinal cord injuries, and just remarkable story. They reached base camp. And then another part of the trip was a service learning program that I designed for 4 college students to come to base camp. Also, Kimberly was on that. And we did this amazing, while we were climbing the mountain, they were doing service work throughout the Khumbu Valley, and it was an amazing learning experience, at which I ended up doing as part of my master's degree. So I don't think there's a lot of people out there can say they got a master's degree on Everest. And these are the Sherpa that are the natives that are portering. Sherpas is an ethnic group, porter's a job description. So the Sherpas are portering loads up the Khumbu, and they are clearly the unsung heroes that make climbing these big peaks, especially Everest, accessible, because they do they carry the loads, they set up the camps, they fix the ropes, and we're carrying maybe a sleeping bag and a few little things, and they're just machines. They're absolutely incredible. And so going across the Khumbu Icefall is a thing, and you have to cross all these ladders that the Icefall doctors, or a special breed of Sherpa, do it. It feels probably about as hazardous as the Karakoram Highway. And we had a couple situations where there was a big rumble, and then ladders were dangling, and we'd have to pick them up and move them and put them in different places, and it was absolutely awesome. But this is like, I think, the most ladders that were tied together, 3 ladders that were tied together to get over this. Just silly. Absolutely silly. And this is a picture like I took, like, I don't know, 24,000 feet on Everest on the Lhotse face, probably on our summit bid, and just, looking at the amazing contorted, twisted rock back there, and just the sense of altitude at these heights. This I took out of the tent at the South Col. So this picture is taken 26,000 feet. And the route goes up here. No fixed ropes. Up here, and then up to here to the balcony, and then on up. This is the South Summit right there. And that was the night before our summit bid. And then this picture is taken from the balcony where the first verified ascent of Everest, Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary slept there at over 27,000 feet, which is absolutely phenomenal. We didn't want to spend any time there at all. And so this upper section, fortunately, had fixed ropes, which made it much more secure. But it was really tricky because when we got here, we were the first up the peak that season. There were no fixed ropes beyond. If you see where my pointer is, that's the Hillary step. There were no fixed ropes beyond there. So my Sherpa that I was climbing with looked at me. He said, "Angela, it is better to live than to die. Let's go down." And I'm like, "I'm with ya." And so I think that was like, I didn't get a chance to go for another summit bid, but I do consider it one of my greatest successes to be part of this trip. And also that I didn't summit, it kind of changed the trajectory of my life in a good way. So that was cool. It's good to know when your failures are really meant to be, you know? And this is Tom, who 5 days later, we got a weather window, we put all our Sherpa together, and he summited and made the first disabled ascent. It was super, super incredible. And I spent a ton of time on this mountain by myself. It's one of those mountains that you can do that because there's fixed lines in the more technical spots. But I ended up, because I got sick, going through the Khumbu Ice Fall by myself probably 6 times. And then my team acclimatized here to Camp 3, and I had the Khumbu cough and was sick in base camp. So they came down, and then I had to go up there if I wanted to have a summit bid. So when I felt better, I went up, stayed, I bypassed Camp 1, I never slept there, went up to Camp 2, stayed. We had a Sherpa that was living up there that was, helping cook and all that, making sure camp didn't blow away. And I stayed the night with him, and then the next day I went up to Camp 3, spent the night by myself, had an amazing experience on the Lhotse face around all these tents that were shrapnel and signs of destruction. Came back all the way back down by myself, and then when we had the opportunity to have a summit bid, went with my partners up to Camp 2. Then from there we went up to Camp 4. My partner that I was climbing with, not the Sherpa because the Sherpa stayed up there, we got to here, the South Summit, which is 200 feet higher than K2. No, it's 500 feet higher than K2. But it's 200 feet away from the summit. But anyway, my partner bailed on me coming down from here. No fixed line. So I had to work my way down by myself. And he was waiting for me at Camp 4. Well, he was totally out of it. And then when we set off to go to Camp 3, he, faster than me, bigger than me, kept going. And so I got to Camp 3, he wasn't there, I just stayed, I was done. And so I ended up spending 2 nights by myself there, and then up and down this whole zone, all the way down to base camp by myself. So that felt pretty mighty. But it put me on a different path, and it made me know that I wanted to be more of a technical guide. I had a couple opportunities to guide Everest, but I knew it wasn't for me. So I dove into the AMGA exams on alpine, on rock, on ski mountaineering. I finally fixed my heel with the telemark ski and fixed the problem and learned how to ski. And, going through 90 days of training and examination was a real empowering experience with my peers right there, and my instructors were my peers, and it just really, it's empowering to know that you've been vetted and you're good at what you do. And that's, I think, the real benefit of this certification is to go through that. I think this picture is hilarious for numerous reasons, but the result of getting my pin, we call this the pin, is it's a big deal, especially for women. And it's funny how big this pin is, because it really is like a metaphor for how big the egos in my profession are. And it's the people. We've done a lot of stuff. People think you're pretty cool when you've done all that stuff, but I wear my small pin very proudly. Thank you. This is Kathy Cosley. She was the first woman in the U.S. to become an IFMGA guide, and I had the great fortune of working with her when I was just kind of getting started before I even pursued my guide training, and she's always been an inspiration. She's still a really dear friend, and she gave me all kinds of advice, I'm sure that helped me survive to this point, because she's like, Angela, you're small. You can't do the same things that the guys can do. You can't just walk with a rope and pull your clients behind you. It's like you got to protect yourself. And I took that to the next level and got a gun. And so this really works. This is way more effective than anything I've found. When you carry a firearm, you really get tremendous respect. No, I'm kidding. This is in Svalbard, where you have to carry a firearm for polar bear protection. But bad humor. But the international certification opened up Europe for guiding, and it was really cool because there are such iconic routes, and the guiding profession has been well established for 200 years in Europe, and it's like you have instant respect with the pen. You're like a doctor or a lawyer. It's like it's a well-known profession that people really look up to, and so the opportunity to guide some of these crazy routes. I mean, look at this. I don't know if you can see me on the mountain here, but the little footsteps going across, that's me. And then the clients down below here. They're kind of routes that we just don't get in the States. And you can look at the background, Mount Rosa, and all this just absolutely stunning terrain. But there's absolutely nothing like it, and the rock's really, really good. The snow conditions are typically good, but look at the people. And for me, I could not deal. I am a wilderness girl, and it's just like the lifts, the trams, all this was just a little too much for me. So I decided to go back and come back here, where I love our wilderness areas, and spent a lot of time guiding in the Northwest, working for Exum in the Tetons, and really feel at home here. This is my place. And since the late 90s, I've been involved in guiding for chicks with picks. How many chicks in the room? I see you. It's so cool. Which was the first all-women's climbing programs in the U.S. And it just is so cool to see now what is being done. Like almost every guide service offers all-women's climbing trips. And, we started out in Uray, and really we're teaching women to climb with women and be self-reliant and not feel like they had to go let their boyfriends put up the ropes and all that kind of stuff. And, all that built lifelong skills to get out and climb on their own and independent. And in doing so, we changed lives. Like, women left their jobs. They left their CEO jobs, bought an RV, and went to the desert, and they just were transformed. And it was super, super cool. There's a lot more to life than, the 9-to-5 grind. And it's just rewarding because we see them out there climbing all the time together, and it's just so great. And these are some of the early guides in the program: Kitty Calhoun, Kim Chismazia, Kathy Cosley, me, Anna Keeling, and Kim Reynolds down at the bottom. She's the founder of this whole thing, and she just had an incredible vision. And we'd have 26 women and 8 guides, and we'd put on these big weekend-long events, and it was fun. We did auctions like this, and we'd have slideshows and little talks about gear and stuff, and it was amazing. And we then went on to rock climbing, because there's a lot more rock around than there is ice, and that turned into a huge hit and took us new places and broadened our community. And, it just really started a wave that's really cool to see what's taken off since then. And some of these women, they got together and asked me if I'd organize an expedition, an all-women expedition to AMGA Lifetime. Actually, they didn't know where they wanted to go, but that's where I thought they should go. And of course, they wanted to do something they knew they could do, but that it would be challenging. They wanted to raise some money because of the example with chicks. So we trained for a year together and went and climbed AMGA Lifetime. And we called ourselves the Mamas de Blanc, which we thought was pretty fun. We had, I was able to hire all women porters. Our Sirdar, who's kind of the head Sherpa, was my Sirdar from Everest, his wife, which was really cool, which was a first to have a woman as a Sirdar. And we wanted to climb it self-supported, which is unusual for how it's usually guided. And so we carried all of our own gear and established our own tents, our camps and everything, and really, really worked. It was a lot of work, but it turned out to be incredibly rewarding because the terrain it's steep, it's technical, but it's mostly relatively safe with fixed ropes, and you're climbing along a ridge, and it's all absolutely incredible. And this is Camp 2, which most of the gals got to, but altitude was a real factor. All the camps were above 19,500 feet, and folks had all had experience up to 20,000 feet, but it was a kicker for a lot. And not too many were able to go past there. And I love this picture because, see that tent? That's Camp 2, where that last picture was taken. Yeah, crazy. And so myself and another woman and another guide, Anna Keeling, set off for the summit from Camp 2, bypassing Camp 3 because we had already acclimatized to there. And we decided to just do it in one long push to the summit instead of carrying sleeping bags and stuff. And myself and this woman, Ellie, summited, which was absolutely incredible. And it's kind of bittersweet when you don't have the rest of the team with you, who had all worked as hard as we had to get there, but that's how Himalayan expeditions go. And if anyone makes it to the top, then you can consider the expedition a success. But of course, it doesn't feel that way if you're not the one that makes it to the top. On top of this, we raised over $20,000 for the Z Foundation, which they put a lot of work in throughout the year, which is absolutely amazing. And it really did bring to the forefront for me how much more complicated women are than men. And that was good to learn that because it was a challenging expedition with our dynamics and just the team and people getting sick and they really wanted to do it, but they couldn't. There was just a lot more emotion than there are on expeditions and climbs with men, and it was really a revelation, but I learned a lot and I wanted to continue doing it. So we have so much fun out there, you know. It's just like, why not do more? So opportunities kept coming my way to do more, and I was asked by this gal Charlotte Fox to help her climb her 7th summit. So we went to Russia, and I guided her and a couple other skiers up this mountain, that's the summit over there. Which was amazing. We had such a good time. The mountain's 18,000 feet, so not super high, but still plenty high enough that, you know, you're working hard. And it was amazing to be in this part of the world that I'd never been in and figure that all out. And we summited, and we raised $9,000 for the Z Foundation on this trip, and skied off the top, which was incredible. And Charlotte was, at that time, one of very few women to actually climb all the 7 summits. So it was really fun. Yeah. And then back home, you know, a lot of this is international, but back home I had to work as well, and I had the opportunity in my home range in the San Juans to work for Telluride Heli Tracks, for 9 seasons, which was absolutely awesome, taking people on like, untracked powder and this beautiful mountain range and being out there every day. But what was the coolest part of the job was the bombs. And like making bombs and then flying around in a helicopter and like, look at me, I'm packed in there with AMFO and dropping them on, to slope tests, those runs, and then being in a perspective up high to watch it. It was just absolutely awe-inspiring. But, the San Juan's a continental snowpack, so there's a lot of hazard there. And after doing this for 9 seasons, my carbon footprint and the exposure to just hazard every day, I just gave it up. I couldn't do it anymore, but I do miss it. And you all know this guy, Doug. So sometime around this time, I met Doug, and he offered me up a space if I brought some clients on his cruise and to Antarctica. And after 2 seasons of going down there with him, he offered me a lead guide position, which I was incredibly honored, with 25 guides from around the world and 100 clients, and I was the lead guide. And it was super cool because I was the only woman on a couple of those trips. And it was incredible. And some of your local legends were like just so awesome to work with. These are just amazing human beings, and some of the best in the business, and both the on and off the snow, and just like, just people that love and are passionate about what they do. And I just love working with people that love this work. It's an absolute joy. I got to do, I think every trip I did a polar plunge. And now I've done 2 in the Arctic, so that's pretty unusual. And then, so the people, the terrain, it's just awe-inspiring being on these massive glaciers in the middle of the Antarctic, which is just, you can't make this stuff up. It's just absolutely hands down trips of a lifetime every time, no matter what the weather. The people are awesome, and it's just, you've got folks that are high adventure, they're successful in their careers, that they can go and do something like this, they have time off, and they can ski, and they love nature, and it's just a really magical recipe that Doug's put together there for folks. And I know there's a bunch of people in the room here that have gone on these trips. But really, it's the penguins, which is why I kept going back, because they are so fun. They're such little mutants. They're just like, out there. Talk about small but mighty. I mean, these things are like out in the middle of Antarctica in the winter and like through it all. And they're just characters, and they're so fun they come right up to you and are super curious, and obviously, I haven't been hunted in years, so it's super cool. And then the rest of the wildlife in Antarctica. I'm a total nature lover, and it's just incredible to see such resilience in such an extreme environment. And this is up in Svalbard, up in the far north. And, even though I'm in a male-dominated profession, my journey's, it hasn't had a lot of major hurdles, and I think that is mainly because I put the time in. I got a lot of mileage on me before I really started taking people for trips and getting into bigger terrain. And even though I'm small, I think people see me in the space, and I've earned my right to be there, and it's just something I love it. I'm so grateful that I have such a great life. I have to show you this because it's absolutely incredible. This is in Svalbard. It's just one of these magic moments that happen, and you just, it's just awe-inspiring. Like, is that floating on clouds? Is it, these super still days, and other days you get to the summit, and you just have these incredible views, and, you're 10 degrees from the South Pole, or the North Pole, and there's no one around, and you feel so small, but you also become empowered because you just climbed a mountain together. yeah, it's pretty special. I feel very, very privileged. Climate change is definitely affecting my career big time, and it's one of my major concerns these days. The mountains are literally falling apart, and it's creating real hazards for my profession. And I happen to be fortunate to work with POW POW! Love what Jeremy's done with this and how we've empowered the outdoor state. It's absolutely incredible. And I know it's getting a little late. If you need to leave, please do, but I just have a super fun little ending here that I did in Mongolia in 2020. I didn't have any work. My wife of 20-some years left me. I broke my leg. Yeah, one of those, but I'm all good. But I decided I needed a different type of adventure and something that wasn't climbing or wasn't skiing, and I found these guys. These are Brits that do this.
Monkey bikes and Mongolia. It's like God's almighty jug of destiny poured into our brains, an adventure so perfect it should only be available in heaven. Except it's not. Now you can do it without even being dead. Monkey Run Mongolia!
These guys are crazy. So like it says, a whole new level of adventuring stupidity. They put these races together around the country. And this is the map of the route. This is that's all they give us to go on. Like, okay, that's Mongolia outlined, top to bottom. The route was actually a little different. They didn't tell us where we were going until we got there, so you couldn't do all your mapping, but our route ended up going, they started us over here, and we ended up at this lake over here. So we didn't go all across Mongolia, but it was an 11-day trip. The maps were awful. Google Maps worked a little bit, but it wasn't great, and we were always looking at the maps, and it was like miles and miles of this and wind, and it was cold and snowed, but it was alpine style because you had to carry all your own kit. So, of course, being an alpine climber helped. We were really prepared, my partner and I, who was awesome. We had like freeze-dried food, we had a little stove, we had our camps, and we had to pack it all up and put it on these little monkey bikes every day and try to go as far as you can. And they don't go much faster than like 30 miles an hour max. So pretty slow going, and following these maps was like, at least the gas stations were marked on the maps. But the signs were not helpful either. I mean, you get to a sign and like, no idea. And then like, I have no idea what we're not allowed to do down here, but evidently you can't wash your cow. And we found a QR code. We thought, oh, this is going to be helpful. And then it was in Russian, of course. So it was absolutely chaos, you know. It's like, this is a typical road in Mongolia. When it gets muddy, they just move it to the right or the left a little bit. And you can see the telephone poles are all totally like crazy, but no fences. The cool thing is is just wide open, no fences. So this is hilarious. This is after day one. They put little trackers on us because they had never done this race in Mongolia, and they just wanted to make sure that probably that they got their bikes back, really. But so from where we started, look at this, day one. Everybody's going in different directions. We looked at this the first night, we're like, oh my, are we going the right place? It was chaos. And so this is kind of the start and a few little clips from the race.
Monkey bike for you. Her name is Switchback. That's how we're getting up the hills. We first off have our fuel injection power machine up front. Fuel injection loading Angela with coffee every morning at the up. We have our food bag, which also holds my water and an extra layer, which I'll need in the next 30 seconds. I have my fanny, which has been a constant companion at the ready. And we have saddlebags, not to be confused with a dog pack. Usually in the saddlebags are quick to grab group gear, the pot, some layers, some extra tie downs, water of course, because I am the camel in the group. We usually have a solar panel. And then back here, that's all my camp gear. That's all I need to live and survive in Mongolia. And you want to give a report for the day so far?
Well, we saw a camel. We'll call this washboard hell. It's only like, I don't know, 100 kilometers or something, and I think we've gone maybe like 20.
Maybe.
Not that much.
No.
If we're lucky, we've gone 20.
Yeah.
But there's a camel.
There's a camel. It's totally worth
holy
it.
smokes, I'd do
Totally
it again.
worth it. Yeah.
I would do it again.
Angela has her right blinker on and she just turned left. Traffic violation.
That could be a photo of the day.
How you doing?
Good.
Everything okay?
Had a little sand
Yeah.
hit, got stuck in the sand.
A little wiggle
A
waggle.
little wiggle.
This is number 2, Angela.
Maybe I need some food. Or water.
Yeah. Hopefully we
some
find the
water,
water
maybe?
soon.
Crazy.
How's it going this morning?
I'm hysterical.
This is Mongolia at 5 miles an hour. We're gonna make it in no time. That's one way to brace a bull.
I got it.
Often it was easier to drive off the road than it was on the road. It's like, my partner somehow managed to hold her phone and video all that. I was like all hands on deck every moment. I don't know how she got all that footage, but freaking hilarious. I mean, we laughed so much. And it was absolutely beautiful, like just being in these places. I mean, we didn't see some riders for days. Like we were just out there on our own. And, you know, you can go like 100 miles an hour. You can go, not 100 miles an hour, you can go 100 miles on a tank of gas on these things. They're absolutely incredible. And the cool thing about the trip is they design it so you're somewhere where no one speaks English. You're gonna like run out of gas. You're gonna definitely break down. And who knows what you're gonna eat. But it's super cool because you have to interact with the locals a lot, which was really a neat part about it. And they don't have monkey bikes in Mongolia yet, but everyone wanted to ride them, of course. And so the weather was bad a couple times, and this is what's so classic, how resourceful people were. I had no idea that these are people that are not climbers, but I mean, look how they're staying warm. Garbage bags on their feet, on their hands. They're just like getting it done. I mean, who would have think to wrap yourself in saran wrap? I mean, it was brilliant. And then we didn't have any major mechanical problems, but people were blowing gaskets left and right because, you know, there's these big guys out there on these bikes, and it's like, so you have to, you know, find a local, go to their yurt, knock on their door, and they always help. We ran out of gas. That was really the worst thing that happened to us, and this nice fellow came by and siphoned some gas from his bigger motorcycle, and just like, what the hell are you guys doing? And, you know, people problem solved in so many different ways to get there. I don't know how many people actually rode the whole way, but we did. We made it the whole way riding ourselves, but other people just were like, oh, this is ridiculous. We're never going to make it, looking for ways, and then getting across rivers like, oh, this will work. We'll put it in a backhoe. And yeah, because you don't want to get those little things wet. I mean, it was amazing. It was one of the best things I've ever done. And it just really reminded me that the world is so much bigger than my little bubble of climbing and skiing and all this stuff, that there's just, it's a magical thing to just go do something new. And, but it's really about who you do things with. And as you could tell from Heidi's laughter, she was an awesome partner, and we're still dear friends. And we just, just had an awesome time just checking out a new cool place. And so stay tuned. This is my next adventure. Skateboarding at 62. I did when I was a kid. I was a skateboarder, but I'm taking it up again and having a ton of fun with it. And it's, it's really, for me, it's always never stop learning, because that's where it's at. Thank you.
All right, y'all, let's hear it for Angela Hawse.
Thank you so much. It's an honor, huge honor to tell my story.
All right.
Thanks for coming out. Safe travels home, folks. And yeah, come on up and say hi.